Let's take a look at the remaining 6 of the known Primarchs, and briefly consider some potential pairings for each. Magnus and Ferrus, Magnus and Lorgar, Horus and Lorgar, Horus and Guilliman, Horus and Alpharius, Alpharius and Guilliman. Other pairings like Magnus and Guilliman need not be considered. They're bad ideas. So Magnus and Ferrus Manus. Well, Magnus the Red embodies knowledge, intellect, and boundless ambition. He represents the Emperor's pursuit of enlightenment and mastery over the immaterial, but also the dangers of hubris and overreach. Ferrus Manus embodies practicality, discipline, and technological ingenuity. He represents the Emperor's grounding in the material world, excelling at craftsmanship and direct solutions to tangible problems. Magnus's focus on the immaterial, on psychic power, contrasts with Ferrus's focus on tangible, technological, material craftsmanship, thus representing the Emperor's dual mastery over the warp and reality. Magnus's unrestrained ambition can be seen as contrasting with Ferrus's disciplined, results-oriented mindset. Of course, also Ferrus might have learned to appreciate the abstract and visionary aspects of Magnus's intellect. Ferrus was never a technological messiah, the way that Magnus thought of himself as a psychic messiah. Pairing these two symbolizes the Emperor's challenge of balancing intellectual ambition with practical discipline. Together, they might have built bridges between psychic mastery and technological innovation, creating advancements far beyond what either could achieve alone. But it's not the only possibility. What about Magnus and Lorgar? Lorgar Aurelian embodied faith, devotion, and spirituality. He represented the Emperor's ability to inspire belief and loyalty, but also the dangers of fanaticism and belief unfettered by fact. Magnus's pursuit of knowledge can be seen as contrasting with Lorgar's devotion to faith, perhaps representing the tension within the Emperor himself as a rationalist who allowed the rise of a religious imperium. Magnus's overconfidence in his psychic abilities might have been grounded by Lorgar's reverence for higher powers. His hubris could have been met by Lorgar's humility, while also Lorgar might have learned the value of critical thought and skepticism from Magnus. Their pairing represents the Emperor's struggle to reconcile science and religion within the Imperium. Maybe. Or maybe the struggle to reconcile faith and knowledge within the Imperium? Hard to say. This one's a weirder one. Maybe by working together, Magnus and Lorgar could have created a balance between rational enlightenment and spiritual unity. Maybe not. This one's tougher. What about Ferrus Manus and Lorgar? It could be practicality versus ideology, I suppose. Ferrus's focus on the material contrasts with Lorgar's devotion to abstract ideals. Maybe this would create opportunities for mutual growth. There's at least some complementary theme here. Craftsmanship versus devotion. Ferrus could have shown Lorgar the value of creating tangible solutions, while Lorgar perhaps might have taught Ferrus to appreciate the power of belief in inspiring action. Perhaps Ferrus's disciplined nature could have tempered Lorgar's tendency towards fanaticism and zealotry, grounding Lorgar in practicality. Their pairing, perhaps, reflects the Emperor's dual need to inspire and create, balancing an abstract power of ideas with the practical tools necessary to realize them. Well, if Lorgar's not a great match for those two, what about Horus and Lorgar? Horus Lupercal. Lupercal? Let's go with Lupercal. Horus Lupercal embodies charisma, leadership, and tactical brilliance. A strategic genius, second only to Perturabo among the Primarchs. But also he embodies the dangers of pride and betrayal. Perhaps then we might see the complementary themes of charisma versus devotion. Horus's ability to lead through charisma aligns quite closely with Lorgar's ability to lead through faith and inspiration, representing the Emperor's ability to command loyalty through both personal example and ideological unity. Perhaps Horus's ambition and desire for autonomy might have been tempered by Lorgar's reverence for higher authority, while Lorgar might have perhaps learned from Horus the importance of self-confidence and independence rather than merely being a follower. Their pairing perhaps represents the Emperor's dual nature as a leader, needing to inspire both through personal charisma and an unifying belief system. Perhaps a positive relationship between Horus and Lorgar might have prevented the heresy by providing Lorgar with a more balanced worldview, and thus allowing him to be a moral compass for Horus, rather than providing the temptation to Horus through the person of Erebus. What about Horus and Verbute Guilliman, perhaps the two most powerful of the Primarchs through their leadership? Guilliman embodied organization, pragmatism, and vision, representing the Emperor's ability to build a stable and efficient civilization. We can see the complementary themes of vision and ambition, with Guilliman's structured approach to leadership contrasting with Horus's more ambitious style, playing Primarchs off of each other. They have two different approaches to building and maintaining power. Guilliman's methodical pragmatism might have tempered Horus's pride, while Horus's passion might have inspired Guilliman to embrace more bold, decisive action. Their pairing represents the Emperor's challenge of balancing inspiration with structure. Together, they might have united the Imperium's emotional and organizational strengths, creating a more resilient foundation for the Imperium. Horus and Altharius is an interesting option, but perhaps not the best option. Altharius embodies secrecy, subterfuge, adaptability, and the mistrust inherent in espionage. He represents the Emperor's capacity for deception and clandestine operations. Horus's open, charismatic leadership contrasts with Altharius's shadowy, secretive methods, perhaps representing a tension between overt command and hidden manipulation. Horus's ability to inspire unity might have counterbalanced the inclination of Altharius and the Alpha Legion towards fragmented, covert operations, perhaps thus fostering trust and cohesion. Their pairing thus reflects the Emperor's dual nature as a ruler who inspires and manipulates. It's hard to say whether a stronger bond between these two would have been a positive thing. Altharius and Verbute Guilliman is an important one. Altharius's clandestine methods contrast starkly with Guilliman's open, structured governance and with Guilliman's strict hierarchical military organization. They represent two fundamentally different approaches to leadership. Altharius's adaptability and resourcefulness might have introduced perhaps some flexibility into Guilliman's rigid structures and rigid thinking, while Guilliman's organization might have provided Altharius with a greater sense of purpose in the service of organized goals. Alpharius might have learned the value of unity and collaboration from Guilliman, while Guilliman could have embraced greater adaptability and creative problem-solving from Alpharius. Their pairing symbolizes the Emperor's need to balance transparency and efficiency with the strategic value of deception. Together, they could have created a more adaptable and unified Imperium at the same time as they improved the effectiveness of both of their legions. We can see here that the remaining 6 Primarchs present rich opportunities for symbolic exploration of the Emperor's remaining facets, or at least some of the Emperor's many facets. Each pairing highlights an unique tension within the Emperor's character, and exploring these relationships, perhaps through fellowship programs and perhaps through other shared experiences, might reveal how their strengths could complement each other, and how their flaws could have been mitigated through mutual growth. The main hypothesis of the series is that while the Emperor sure wasn't going to meet the emotional needs of his sons, perhaps they could have helped to meet each other's emotional needs as brothers.